All right, everybody. How are y'all doing? Good. I want to thank you all for being here. Events like these, where the police department can connect with the community, are very important because it helps us build a stronger bond, helps us build trust. Now, I know it's dinner time. I'm sorry we don't have a sandwich spread over there, but please help yourself. We've got cookies, chips, and we've got an assortment of drinks over there, so enjoy that. Today, we will have Chief going over a brief presentation of some of the goals that we've reached over the previous year, the partnerships that we've made, some data of crime in the city and other data. After that, we're going to be going over submitted questions that we have. And finally, after we go over those questions, we'll open the floor up for you all to ask questions. All right, and with that, I will hand the mic over to Chief.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. And I think this is on. Well, again, thank you all for being here. We're going to go through a presentation. Kyle, you want to go through the first two? Obviously, we just have a, this is our vision, mission, and values, just so everybody here knows. This is, within our police department, this is everywhere. And because it really does drive everything that we do. It's not just a bunch of words. And so this is on our website. You can come into the lobby, into the public section. It's there. And over the last 2 years, we've really been kind of driving this home and what it means. Go to the next one. January 16th, 2023 is when I was sworn in here in the city of Charlottesville. On that day, in front of City Council, when I got sworn in, I committed to the council and to this city to do three things, or to focus on three things. Number one was to build community partnership and address gun violence. If you remember at the time, we were averaging a shooting a day, or a shots fired call a day. The first 3 months, we had 4 homicides. And so that was priority number one. Priority number two was recruitment and retention. At the time, we had a quarter of our workforce was empty. We had 30 vacancies. Priority number three was the treatment and wellness of our staff. I'll just be honest, like everyone else, I was sitting back watching what was going on in Charlottesville. There was a mass exodus of our police department, and it just seemed like there wasn't much direction. And there was a multitude of reasons why that happened. Okay, so those were the three things that we really needed to focus on, because if we weren't going to treat the folks within the four walls of that building with dignity and respect, we sure as hell could not expect to treat the community the same. And so we knew we had to just start there. We had to start with really focusing within our organization, looking inward, if we're going to go ahead and be the police department our community expects of us. So goal number one, to reduce gun violence through increased community partnerships within the city of Charlottesville. Go ahead. And so if you see here, and just like we're here today at a town hall, this is the third one we've done. The first one was really out of necessity, right? Again, like I said, we had 4 homicides, 3 months. There was a lot of chaos going on. Ms. Vizina invited me to an HOA meeting where I was told there would be about 5 people, and well, we all know how that worked out. It was packed. But what I got out of that was a community that was sick and tired of what they were seeing. And they weren't necessarily mad at the police department, but we were just mad in general that we were better than this as a community, and what I realized from that meeting was that nobody expects the police department to do it on their own. And to me, that's important, because when we talk about addressing gun violence and the complexities of it, we're just one spoke in a very large wheel. All right? And so I remember walking home from that meeting that night thinking to myself, man, we got something good here in Charlottesville. We can make a lot of progress, because this is a community that cares and wants to be involved with solutions and have real conversations. And so that's what we've been doing. And so you see all these pictures up here. We're having a town hall meeting here. We do community walks every week for 2 years. We have walked a separate community in this city. And why is that important? Because when we first started doing those community walks, we heard something very different than what we heard at city council meetings. We heard folks that were wondering, where the hell were we? Why haven't I seen a cop in my community? Why don't cops wave when they drive by? We were hearing all kinds of things, and it was very different. It was like, well, what am I missing here then? Because I hear something different, like we don't want the police in our community. We're over-policed. We're this, we're that. Well, no, what we heard is that they did want the police in the communities. But they didn't want to feel like they were under siege. They wanted to see the cop walking a beat. They wanted to know the cop's first name. They wanted to know the cop to know their first name. They wanted to have conversations on their front doorsteps, in their living rooms, or on the sidewalks. And so that's what we've been doing for 2 years, every week. And I got to tell you, those conversations have not only formed our strategic priorities within the police department, it's something that, you know, we get a lot out of. You know, if there's shootings in the neighborhoods, we'll get out and we'll go to that neighborhood and we'll go talk to folks and kind of figure out, you know, what's been going on? What have we been missing? What can we do better? So that's one thing. You'll notice that everything up here is designed to really involve the police department within the community and involve the community within the police department, whether it's our community police academy. Go to the next one. Whether it's our community police academy, our community action team. Who in here is on our community action team? Raise your hand. There's a few of them. Okay? We meet every month. Every month. Sit down. We look at policies. We pull up body cam footage. We unpack it. We talk about it. We ask questions. We answer questions. We go through. We have those difficult conversations because that's how we get better, by having difficult conversations. We started a teen police academy. We have our first Latino academy that's coming up here in a few months. We have a faith coalition. We've embraced our faith community, and we sit down with them on a regular basis. And so what we say within the police department that's very important is that we don't do one-offs. It's consistency. It's intentionality. It's about continuing to do what we do. If only time you see the police department or police officers when there's something wrong, that's a problem. And so we're going to continue to do that, even while crime is down. We're going to show some numbers. Okay, so here's 3-year average. Now, before I get into our 3-year average numbers, this year compared to last year, 2024 numbers compared to 2023, Part 1 crime, which is our most serious crime, homicide, aggravated assault, robbery, sex offense, shootings, stuff like that, down 10%. Homicide is down about 75%. Over 3-year average, it's down 75%. 2023, we had 6 homicides. 2024, we had 1. These are our numbers. Over 3 years, the average. Part 1 crimes down 4%. Aggravated assault, 13%. Burglary, 17%. Homicide, 75%. Larceny is up 3%. Robbery down 13%. Sex offenses are down 30%. Those numbers, yeah, they look great. But we still had a homicide last year. We had someone who was killed on 12th Street, a block from my house. And I can tell you, no matter what those numbers may show, there's success. Until there's 0, we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. And it's because of this community that has really come together and worked and embraced its police department, and a police department that has embraced this community, that I feel like successes have been made. But again, we have a lot of work to do, and we're not going to slow down. Our shots fired incidents. Now look, when you talk about reporting crime, you typically, it's not something you report to the FBI as to shots fired. But we've started collecting that data because we feel like it still tells a story. And so our 3-year average on total, verified and unverified, shots fired are down 30% within the city of Charlottesville. Next slide. Calls for service. Last year, we responded to 60,653 calls for service. That's a lot. That's a lot of calls. It's a lot of 911 calls. And so while we work really hard to develop teams like the Anchor team, who is doing a tremendous amount of work, and we love to talk in this community about things that the police shouldn't respond to. Look, I'm Catholic, so I don't jump up in church and yell, but if I did, amen to that. Yes, would love that to be the case. But we're still the call of choice. That's just reality, folks. And so we're going to continue to do that work with the resources that we have. And we'll get into our staffing numbers here in a minute. Go ahead. We'll get into our staffing numbers here in a minute, which we'll talk about responding to these calls for service with the resources that we have. Overdoses. This is a conversation that is not only happening at the local level, but it's a conversation at the state level and at the national level. And everyone wants to use it for whatever side of the aisle they may be on. But it's a real thing. It's a real problem. Now, overdoses in the city are down. Last year we had 101 overdoses. This year, 2023 we had 101. 2024 we had 75. Now look, those numbers are deceiving. I'll be the first to tell you that. And I see our fire marshal in the room here too, so I see him shaking his head. We don't know how many overdoses we had in this city. And that's probably a good thing because of the accessibility of the naloxone, right? It's much more accessible to folks these days. So someone will overdose in their living room and may have it with them and then save their own life or have someone save their lives. That is a good thing. That's a win. But I'm going to tell you right now, these numbers, don't let this deceive you. It's a real problem. It's a real problem in this city because people don't know what they're getting. And so how do we solve it? I don't have the silver bullet. I will tell you that just like anything, that big wheel where that one spoke, man, a lot more of those spokes need to be making that wheel turn to address this complex issue because this is dangerous stuff. And it's in everything. Marijuana, vapes, you name it. These kids have no idea what they're getting. And so it's a real problem that we're going to have to deal with. We're doing a lot in that area, but again, we're just one piece, so we'll do our piece. We're going to focus on the mid to upper level drug trafficking organizations. We're going to identify those individuals. And if you're pushing poison on the streets in the city of Charlottesville, we're going to find you. We'll put a case on you, and we'll do everything we can to remove you. Because you don't have a right to prey on our communities with this poison. It ain't fair. It ain't right. But we need more systems to step up just than us. I mean, we have the closest inpatient clinic to the city of Charlottesville is like 60 miles away. That's craziness. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this. Next. Recruitment and retention. All right, so we are authorized 111 sworn officers. Like I said, 2 years ago we had 30 vacancies. Today we have 4. With 33 professional staff, today we have 2 vacancies. These are great numbers. And I'm often asked how we were able to get our staffing to this level in the first place. I don't have that answer because I don't think it was just one thing. I think there's a lot. I think people who are applying to us now, we got a multitude of applications. We're getting good applicants. We don't take all of them. We reject more applicants than we hire because it's important that we're hiring the right people to serve this community. And just because you could be a cop in another community, don't mean you could be a cop here. We have different expectations, and so does this community. And so, hold on one second, go back. So the numbers, again, we're authorized 111. In 2016, we were authorized, Steve, Nick, tell me where I'm wrong here, if I get this number right, 132? Okay. We were authorized 132 in 2016. Today we're authorized 111. And we calls for service right now, 60,000. So that's a lot. So we could have a real conversation about that. But the officers are doing an amazing job out there. They're being proactive. And so what do I mean by being proactive? I'm not talking about stopping every car with a burnt out taillight. Those around have been around here know what I'm talking about. I'm talking getting out of their cars and walking neighborhoods every day, every night. And they're logged. We log them. Every time they get out, they're logged, okay? And the numbers reflect it. Okay, go ahead. Treatment and wellness of our staff. Go ahead. So if we're going to keep people, we're going to recruit people, these are some of the things that we invest in. I won't read every one of these things off, but a few of the things that we're doing in the officer wellness, we have a new contractor, psychological screener for our officers. We have to take care of the folks if we expect them to go out into the community and do the work. Impact first responder contracts. So that is a group that we contracted with. It was funded in last year's budget where our officers can get mental health treatment with no questions asked. Formalized our processes for our internal specialty units, aligning training and hiring with internal affairs. That's a big piece. So we did a restructure within our organization where we aligned our training and hiring with internal affairs. Because what we find more often than not from an internal affairs investigation are training issues and hiring issues. And so having them all aligned in the same place just makes sense. So we've done that. We've streamlined the process of internal investigations to ensure consistent and fair investigations. So this was, and Inez, I know she's back there, the executive director of our PCOB, we spoke about this. Before, probably, and most agencies, depending on the complaint, first-line supervisors will do the investigation. Well, we've changed it now. Here, Internal Affairs does every investigation. Now, that's a lot. But we wanted to make sure that the process was fair with these investigations, and we wanted to make sure they were consistent, because I think our community expects that. Creation of a use of force review panel. So that's currently in our process right now, where when we have an officer who has a use of force, it gets documented, an investigation is conducted, it goes through a review process from the sergeant all the way up to assistant chief. We have added another level before it gets to me, which is a use of force review panel, which will include the executive director of the PCOB or their assistant, along with use of force experts, along with our other internal folks within our organization, to get a fresh look at that before that use of force investigation comes to me for a final determination. And then collective bargaining, that was huge for our staff. It gives them a voice. It gives them a voice in the area of pay and benefits and how they're treated. And you know, there's a lot of conversation about cops and collective bargaining and unions and all that kind of stuff. This just means there's rules, and those rules are laid out. Doesn't prevent me from getting rid of bad cops. That's not true. The only difference is I'm not going to talk about it publicly, about internal affairs investigations of personnel matters. I don't think that's appropriate. But I could tell you right now, we've terminated officers over the last 2 years. We hold our officers accountable, and we treat them fair. Good. Real quick, in the CPD Futures program, this is a program, like I said, a quarter of our workforce we've hired over the last 2 years. We got a lot of young cops. And so they need to be mentored, right? Be brought in and show what their expectations are. So that's something that we've been working on, more of like a mentorship program internally. These are some of the investments in training. ICAT, which is Integration Communication Assessments and Tactics. Basically, it's a different way of looking at use of force. It's really determining or looking at the difference between what's a threat and what's actually threatening. There's a difference. And so it's really about implementing those CIT standards, if you will, into our use of force training. And so that's being rolled out. And we've gotten back to in-person training. I think it's important. You get more from it. Let's be honest. How many in here was told at work to go online and take this training course, right? Right, and you hit yes, yeah. You click, right? Yeah. So let's be honest. In-person training matters, and we've invested in it, and it ain't cheap. My boss is here now. He knows how much money I asked for. Okay? But we're bringing in some of the best in the business from across the country to Charlottesville to teach our entire organization. Supervisor liability. Tier 1 leadership development courses. Confronting bias in law enforcement. How many in here thinks, oh, every cop couldn't wait to go to that class? Let me tell you something. It's one of the best training they've ever attended, or I've ever attended, I can tell you that. And it was because who the instructor was and the content of what was being instructed. And it was in person, and it was engaging. We got a lot out of it. And so we've put the investment in training, and I think that's been really important. And then we're currently signing an MOU at the UVA Center for Public Safety and Justice. I sit on that advisory board, and they do research. If we want to look at a new policy, if we want to look at training, some best practices, they'll do that research and do all the legwork for us and kind of give us recommendations. Next. All right, measurements. So I can sit up here and talk about things we're doing and successes, but that's just me. I'm a cop. I'm biased. So we've asked the Justice Department to come in through their COPS office and do what's called organizational assessment. through collaborative reform. They've done, how many times have y'all been here?
This is my
Fourth time he's been here. And that team has been here 3 other times. They come in with a team, and they do a deep dive into our organization, everything we do and how we do it. And so the first set of recommendations will be coming out this Friday. This is them. And you'll see a lot of it has to do with shoring up processes. Like, for instance, our field training program. We have a policy on field training because accreditation requires us to. But we don't have an SOP. What's the difference? An SOP gets into the minutia of how specific things have to happen between a field training officer and all that other stuff. And so this is some of the stuff we've gotten out of it, really, and then updating, stuff like updating the role of our Fourth Amendment auditor. What else can they do? How else can they be more effective within our organization? Updating internal affairs software. And then something that we have been talking about is our early warning system. An early warning system is, say an officer has 4 use of forces in, 2 months, okay? Well, it flags, in the system it'll flag that officer. Now, they all may be justified, but you know what, it's gonna say, hey, you need to look here. What's going on? And it's a second review, it's an ultimate review, it's another layer of review. And so we've been working with Axon, who handles the software in that system, and that should be implemented here soon. Bobby, where are we on that? Close?
Yeah, of course, we're just formalizing the policy and meeting next week to finalize.
Awesome. So that'll be up and running here soon. And these will be posted. We'll post the recommendation once the Justice Department puts that out Friday, but this will be on our website. So go ahead. And then the other measurement we're doing is through the Center for Policing Equity. So we've asked for the Center for Policing Equity to review our use of force data, identify disparities, and more importantly, why do they exist? So I know there's disparities in use of force. It's not a secret to me. I don't think it's a secret. Anybody in police work that's been around a while would be lying to you if said there isn't. Same with traffic stops. We know they exist. What no one has been able to tell us as a profession is, why do they exist? Implicit bias has a piece of it. No doubt. I get it. Everyone in this room has implicit bias. Every one of you, including myself. The difference is, as a cop, when we act on an implicit bias, that's a bad day. And so we have to recognize that. But I suspect the answer to why do disparities exist is much more complex and nuanced than it's just about the cops. So we need to have a real conversation around this topic. And so I've asked the Center for Policing Equity to dig deep into our data, identify those disparities, and let's have a real conversation about why those disparities exist. And that report will be public as well. And then finally, our Guardian Score program. We've talked about this. Every one of our officers has a card. It's a business card. On the back is a QR code. Every stop our officer does, they have to hand it to the person that they stopped or encountered, and they can rate that interaction with the officer. We've been rolling this out for a little less than a year now, and some of the results for 2024, go to the next one. So the highest score you can get is a 5. We have an average of a 4.88. These are interactions that are rated by the community. Obviously, field operations have the most because they're the ones with most interactions. Go ahead. And this is just a breakdown of race and ethnicity of the scores. Next one. All right, we're going to get into questions here in a second. I know I said a lot, but I really wanted to kind of go through all of this, all right? We're going to get into some submitted questions, and then we'll take questions from everyone here, okay? So, Kyle, you got them?
I got it. We're going to go to the second mic. Is the mic working? Barely. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read these off right here, and Chief's going to answer some of these. First off, what's the status of the gun buyback program?
Good question. All right, so the gun buyback program, this doesn't work, but I'm loud enough. Y'all can hear me, right? Yeah. Okay. But the mic, people, I'm not. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
I'll go like this. So, all right, the gun buyback program. So, City Council passed an ordinance last year authorizing us to do a gun buyback. One of the things I didn't want to just do was have a gun buyback program and just say, hey, bring your guns and turn them in. I think that would be a lost opportunity to, one, engage with the community, especially gun owners, and have a conversation about responsible gun ownership. I'll be honest with you, I'm trying to figure out a way to say nicely, lock your freaking car and don't leave your guns in your car, because that's what we're seeing the most of, people stealing guns out of people's cars. And so, but I think this is a way to engage with the community when they bring guns. I think it's also a way that we could maybe integrate other public safety entities within that process. So we're talking about that now. I've met with the city manager about some funding for it as well, and we're having that conversation. So that's where we are with it.
All right. What is the police department's relationship with the schools?
So I have a wonderful relationship with the superintendent of schools. He calls me, I call him. If there's an issue, we talk, whatever it might be. We have a direct line of communication, and whatever the school needs, we give it to them. And so I know the conversation on SROs always comes up. Look, that's a conversation that the school board really needs to have. And, you know, ultimately it's their decision. And, you know, if that decision is ever made, I mean, you're talking about, one, there needs to be a funding request for it, because I don't have those positions. And two, you're talking about a year process from the time of the ask to the time it actually happens. So that's where we are.
What's the plan to update the community on Flock?
Yes, Flock. So our ALPRs or our Flock system, and it's going to have a lot of conversation on the state level this year because there's legislation that's been introduced to set some guardrails on Flock. And I've been involved in those conversations at the state level to ensure that there are those guardrails. I think, I mean, it's important. And I'll be honest, they're looking at Charlottesville's policy, what we put in place, as a guide. And that don't make all my peers very happy all the time because this community had different expectations of what should be in Flock and what shouldn't. And so, and it is our job to make sure we listen to this community. As part of the pilot program, I committed to briefing council on the Flock program. I'm briefing them the first meeting in February. And then we will start going to the community groups that we met with throughout the year while developing our policies and briefing them on it as well.
What's Flock?
Oh, Flock, I'm sorry. Flock is a name for a company that runs ALPRs, which is automated license plate readers. We have 10 of them within the city. It's posted on our website. You could go on and see where they are. And it basically takes pictures of license plates, and it's real time. We've had, and I don't want to get too much into all the success stories here, because really it wouldn't be fair to council. They should be really the first to hear it. But we just had a success story the other night. But the shooting on Hardy Drive where that person was shot in the leg, we had a description of a vehicle, put it in the Flock system, got a tag number, was able to identify the driver, and ultimately identify the shooter. I could talk about that time and time again. So it's been, and whether it be tracking a homicide suspect, recovering stolen vehicles, so that's what it is. That's the type of stuff it does. But that's going to be a briefing for City Council.
What are you doing about homeless people in front of businesses and on the Ravenna Trail?
Sorry. What am I doing about, or what are we doing about the unhoused in front of businesses? So I'll start with the businesses. I'm going to be honest. When we have complaints or people call us about an unhoused individual in front of somebody's business, and we go there and ask them to leave, you know what typically happens? They get up and leave. Yep. They get up and leave. If they have a tent camp somewhere they're not supposed to, and we say, hey, and we're getting complaints about it, and we say, hey, can you move your tent and go somewhere? They move their tent and go somewhere. And so this is a conversation that I think, at least for me, I just think we got to bring a little bit more humanity to it. I get it. People trying to run businesses, you don't want people sleeping in front of your business or defecating or stuff like that. Those are real challenges. I understand that, and we'll do everything we can to help with that. But man, these are not bad people. I'm going to tell you right now, they're good folks, and it's a challenging and complex issue that the police are not going to solve. And I don't think anybody in this room or this community wants the police to solve it. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of other systems out there, and I can tell you, our city manager right here, there's not too many meetings we have that it ain't part of the conversation. They're working their butts off to work through it. So we'll talk about that and some solutions that are on the table, but that's not necessarily a police problem, if you will.
How many African-American officers do you have?
So we have 18, which is almost a quarter of our workforce. And so we've made a lot of progress in that space. So, and we're going to continue to make progress. So as we hire officers, it's something that we do focus on. We want to make sure, and I will tell you, I'm not afraid to say it. We should not be afraid to say as a profession that we want to hire folks that reflect diversity of our community. And we do. And we've done that. And it's because of the folks back there that have worked their butts off to get officers in the door and get the right officers in the door. And so I couldn't be prouder of them. But yeah, almost a quarter of our workforce are African-American officers.
What is CPD's role in the area of immigration enforcement and mass deportation?
I suspected that was going to come up. So there's a lot of bluster and tough talk around this topic. Actually, Dr. Williams and I were at a summit this past week with chiefs and executives from across the country, and we talked about this, and it's a challenge. We're living in a very polarized society. I think as a police department, the expectation is that we don't get into that bluster and all that crazy political talk about these topics. I will tell you that we are not immigration enforcement. We do not and cannot do enforce immigration laws. It's not what we can do. We can't do it. We do not ask people's immigration status. Now, I think what people often don't understand is the process and how when we say arrest somebody, say for DUI, and they're brought to the jail, and then they're fingerprinted. At the jail, if they are fingerprinted, they're then told, if it'll come up whether there's like an ICE detainer, it's called, right? Now the jail will call ICE if there's an ICE detainer because by federal law, they're required to. But we don't. And I'm not required to call anybody. And so, so it's kind of a separation in systems, if you will. It's not something the police department does. And so we don't have a role in immigration enforcement. We'll do everything we can to keep our community safe. And if you're a victim of a crime, it doesn't matter if you're here legally or illegally, we want you to call us and make sure and you should expect to get the same service anyone else would. So.
When will SROs be back in the schools?
I think I've answered that one. When we're asked. Is that it?
Okay. Why aren't you enforcing the laws against wearing masks in public?
The Commonwealth Attorney's here today. We talked about this actually recently. So if you commit a crime and you're wearing a mask in this city, you're probably going to be charged with both, okay? But we're not at a point yet where just wearing a mask, walking around in public, you're going to be charged with a crime. That's a slippery slope. And so we're just not there yet.
We got two more.
Okay.
When will there be a night shift officer on the downtown mall?
Good question. So we currently have a day shift officer staffed on the downtown mall Tuesday through Fridays. And the evening shift have been staffing an officer on the downtown mall evenings when staffing permits. Correct, Lisa? So we are making that a priority when we have staffing that permits to do so.
What's your opinion of the proposed new location for the Salvation Army?
So as the police chief, it is not my role to say where a shelter should be. And so I will tell you that this is a very complex issue, and wherever city council and the city manager make that determination to be, we will do everything to make sure it's safe. That is my commitment to this community and around that conversation. But I don't think anyone thinks the police chief should be opining on where something like that should be, because it's not my role. So.
Okay, with that, we're going to open up the floor. So just raise your hand and I'll come over to you if you have a question.
Questions?
You got the
Someone's got one.
gentleman in the back. Here you go, sir.
Chief, my name's Tom Harvey. This is my wife, Pam. Thanks for having this session. Our son, Anthony, died of a apparent overdose on the 13th of August this past year. You can imagine how it is. What we've found, what we've discovered, and I have to say your police department detectives have been very sympathetic, very helpful, but we're not getting a lot of answers. Tony was staying in a townhouse on Prospect, very near, 2 blocks from the hospital, 1 block from Buford Middle. The house is being used as a drug den, drugs going in and out, minors being sent in to buy drugs. Tony's job there was to kick everybody out. He was supposed to clean the house out for the lady who was in rehab. He went in on the 8th of August, and the 9th is the last we heard from him. The police found him 3 days later with his dog in the apartment. There's simply no words. Tony was a good kid, a bright kid, a happy kid. He thought he was getting a Percocet, and it was pressed fentanyl. This fentanyl plague is horrendous. You know it. You don't have the resources you need to hit it all. You're trying hard. First of all, I have 3 questions. One
All right.
is I'd like to meet with you to understand the status of my son's case
Absolutely.
personally.
We'll set that up right now.
I'd appreciate that. 2, the proximity to the school is really worrisome. And I was out of town when I found out about my son's death. I drove to that area, and I could see spotters on the street directing people to that house. What are we doing about that? What is the school doing about it? And lastly, what can we do with this Mexican, Chinese scourge with fentanyl that's 20 times stronger than anything that people are used to in our corridor from Richmond to Roanoke, which is horrendous? What can we do to try to knock this thing down? Because it's killing our kids, and we got to stop it. It won't save our son, but if we could save one person, it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. And so you're right. I would never know. So I am sorry. I am sorry for your loss, sir. And we will. Tony, can you right after this? Can you get his information? We'll set up a meeting. Thank you. Right away. As for the question about what are we doing within the neighborhood, so I would push back and just say it's not the school's responsibility about what's going on there in the neighborhood. That's our responsibility. And so we just last year got put an officer on what's called a 3A task force. It is Virginia State Police Task Force, where they focus on mid to upper level drug trafficking organizations, specifically in the area of fentanyl, and they've made significant seizures. You don't always hear about them because of the nature of that work. It's not something that's typically put out there in the public, but they have done some significant seizures there. The challenge around street level drug dealing in the city is a challenge, and it's something that we need to look at. But we got to make sure we do that right. You know, as to the Mexican cartels and Chinese cartels, you're right. I mean, that's where it's coming from. It's coming up through the border into all the states, right? We're not just Virginia dealing with this. This is a problem throughout the country, and it has been, and it's been brewing for a while. You know, if you think about it, probably about 10 years ago, when I was doing that narcotics work, we were spending $82,000 for a kilo of heroin. But then we can go on a dark web and buy a kilo of fentanyl for $1,200. Where's your profit margin? Fentanyl is, 10, 20 times stronger than heroin, right? And so now we see very little heroin, and it's mostly all fentanyl. And like you said, it's pressed in pills, and we're seeing it laced in marijuana and all kinds of other stuff. And so it is a challenge, but I could tell you that we're making some progress in that, but that's no comfort to you who lost a son. And so we will sit down very soon, within the next week, okay? And you'll get an update on your case, all right? Thank you.
PSN is also an aspect that we utilize in the cartel.
That's correct. Project Safe Neighborhoods is an initiative that we have linked up with our federal partners, FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Attorney's Office. Actually, we have I don't know if it's public yet, the press conference coming up to announce the first portion of that, utilizing our focused deterrence model, identifying specific prolific offenders within this community that we will identify, call in, and they can choose. They can go get the services they need, and we'll offer those services to them and steer them to those services, or they cannot. And then we'll do everything we can to make sure they're not out there on the street anymore, using all those resources.
How are those people identified?
It's a scoring system, actually. So there's a matrix. Look, most of the violent crime we see in this city, violent crime or somebody, it's a very small group of individuals. We know who they are over and over again, right? And so we've identified them, we've given them a score, and they should be expecting a call or a visit soon to come talk to us. Voluntarily. Sit down. What do you need to stop, man? What do you need to stop shooting up neighborhoods? You need help? You need services? What is it? Or are you just going to be a tough guy and do your thing? Let us know. We're here to help you. This is your one chance before the full weight of the federal government and state government and local government and every resource that comes with that, to include federal grand juries. So we're taking an approach to say, hey, we're here to help. Here are the resources. If you don't want them, this is what's coming. Okay? Next question.
All right.
Chief Coaches, I want to thank you and your staff for the work you're doing and the changes that you've made. Gun violence prevention is one of my top issues, and I want to thank the gun violence interrupters who are here today and ask, how are you working together with them to support their work that helps prevent the shootings?
Okay, great. I don't need a microphone. I'm loud enough. So, and let me say this. The work they do is work I can't do or our folks can't do. They're out there in the community interrupting, speaking with folks in the neighborhoods, folks who ain't going to talk to the police. And so that work's invaluable. And I will tell all of you, I appreciate the work you do. Thank you. Thank you, Herb. Thank you, Brian, for leading the way. Thank all of y'all. I'm not going to sit here and say I know it's dangerous work because I'm not the one doing it. Okay? But I can imagine. All right? So I appreciate it, and we're here for you. Look, the design of how this works, people can't see me and her walking around together, man. They ain't going to talk to them if they do, right? But we have a relationship where we communicate, but they got to do their work, and we have to do our work. But I think we all have the same goal in mind, and that's addressing this complex issue of gun violence. So I hope that answers your question. All right. Yes. Yes.
I talk loud.
This records it live.
Oh, you referred to the website several times. What is your website?
Kyle, do you want?
It is charlottesville.gov/police.
Okay, that's simple. And
You could Google
direct.
Charlottesville Police, and it'll come right up.
That'll pop up as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And be sure to follow on social media as well. It's updated often.
And that's just Charlottesville Police Department on Facebook.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
What else? Somebody got something.
My name's Dan Van Buskirk in Orange Street. Does the police department have any plans to invest in this camera technology to monitor and issue speeding tickets,
Yeah, so the question was, does the police department have money to invest in speed cameras? I'm assuming you're talking about school zones, because school zones and work zones are the only place by statute that you're allowed to have them in Virginia right now. City Council did approve this a while ago, right, for school zones, to have them in school zones. We're still working through that. There are some things that are associated with implementation of those programs that we still have to work out. But it has been approved, and our traffic engineering folks are working through it now. So it will happen, I just don't know when.
Outside of the school and the work zones, there's a problem going up and down High Street and across Locust both ways. There's no line of sight there. If you pull out,
It's very, very
it's a
difficult.
wheel, but somebody's coming 50 miles an hour, what do you do?
Yeah, and one of the challenges is, our traffic, we get those complaints, and our traffic officers will go out and they'll do radar in those areas, and it'll make a difference when they're there. They just can't be there all the time, right? And so that's the challenge. What's that?
Get a camera.
Camera, but by code we can't. So the state right now, and there may be legislation in this General Assembly, but right now, by code, we can only use speed measuring devices like that, cameras, in school zones and work zones. And only during those hours of that it's a school zone, which is when the lights are flashing. This gentleman over here had one in the back, and then Herb.
Right over here.
Back one. Oh, and then Herb, yeah.
Right here.
Hey, could you just hold it?
I got
You're gonna
you.
have to bear
Yes, sir.
with me. I have to write this stuff down to be able to tell you. I'm very concerned about crime in this town, and previously I've gone to city council meetings regarding this and other issues only to be ignored. That was when crime was not nearly, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to just bear with me a second. My hands don't work like they used to.
So you need to scroll this down.
Yeah.
Let me help you out.
That was when crime was not nearly as bad as it has become in the last few years. I did an informal survey based on reported crimes to CPD, and in a 3 or 5 mile radius of my home, the numbers are staggering. Just in the last 30 days, we've had 66 thefts, 34 assaults, 3 burglaries, 5 vandalisms, 4 trespassing, and 3 shootings. The city, the police department, and the media never publish suspect descriptions from victims, photos or video pictures from security cameras, ring cameras, or any other medium. And we never see arrests or reporting on resolution of these crimes. I'm especially concerned of the high number of assaults against citizens. Specifically, what are you doing to combat assaults on citizens? And would you start publishing suspect descriptions or in any effort to identify these criminals? Because I believe, as I've said to City Council dozens of times, having 1,000 pairs of eyes on the lookout is better than just 2. It is my contention that if criminals see their pictures in the media, they will be less likely to continue if they think they will be caught. Citizens may recognize criminals and turn them in. As it stands now, they have free reign over the city because they have no fear of being caught, and if and when they are caught, the prosecutors and judges let them go to reoffend out of some flawed sense of social justice. Would you commit to, where available, identifying criminals and inform the public on resolution of crimes? That's it.
All right. Well, thank you for your question, sir. I appreciate it. So I'll answer the theme of your question, if you will, which seems to be about transparency, right? Identifying folks who we believe committed a crime and may have some type of picture or photo evidence of it and putting it out to the public. I will say that we do a lot of that. We don't do it in every case because sometimes we may not have enough to put out there. You know, we need to have some type of identifying information before we put it out to the public or put it out on social media. And we have to have some type of information to believe that that person is associated with a specific crime, right? I mean, we're putting someone's face out there. So we have to be very careful with that. But we do. And then as for updating crimes, I will tell you, and our Commonwealth attorneys here today, when it comes to the area of gun violence or violent assaults or violence in general, this man right here has been, him and his office. I mean, last year we had 6 homicides. We had 6 convictions. These folks are getting significant sentences. It is a priority, not only for our office, but for their office. Probably one of the best Commonwealth attorneys' offices I've ever worked with. And they work side by side with our detectives. When we have a shooting or a homicide or whatever the case may be, when I come in, whether it be 1 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the night, in the morning, whenever it might be, their prosecutors standing there with our detectives, sitting down, working the case with them. And so that's the type of commitment you're getting from not only the police department, from our prosecutor's office as well. You know, I was asked recently on a show, Joe and I were, we should be tougher on crime. Be tough on crime. So I pushed back on that and I said, what does that even mean? What does it mean? Part 1 crime's down 10%. Homicides down 76%. Shots fired down over the last 3 years, down 30%. Is that tough enough on crime for you? I mean, I think, you know, but look, perception matters as well. I could talk all day long about how crime is down. The numbers show it. But the person who lives in that house the other night that got shot up 40 times, they don't want to hear that. So I get it, right? But I don't think it can take away the work that our officers are doing and the prosecutors are doing. These gentlemen here, and ladies and gentlemen, are doing. The community's doing. Sir, there's a lot of really good work in this community that's being done by more people than just the police department. I couldn't be prouder to work with them. And so we have a lot of work to do. I'll tell you that. Larcenies, absolutely. That's a big problem for us, right? And we need to probably do a better job educating the public on locking their cars and not leaving if you're going to be a gun owner, be a responsible gun owner. Don't keep it in your car. If you don't feel like you can keep a gun in your house safely, maybe you shouldn't have one, right? Like, so we do have a lot of work to do in that space. But I'll just push back a little bit and say that there's a lot of great work being done in this community in the area of violence. And a lot of those folks are sitting in this room.
I have been a resident just in my house where I'm living now for 40 years. And I've never seen, maybe it's because of social media and you get it reported more.
Yeah.
However, I've never seen as much crime as we've had in the last 3 or 4 years.
And we are reporting it more, a lot more. We're pushing a lot more out there. And you're right, it's a 24-hour news cycle, you're going to get it, right? And so, but we're not going to stop doing that. I think the community should know when a home is shot up, right? Because people wake up in the middle of the night like, what the heck was that? What happened?
What about all these assaults? What are, I mean...
So assaults, it depends, you know, assaults are wide-ranging when you talk about assaults, right? You have domestic assaults, you could have a bar fight, you could have a dispute between 2 people, right? Like a lot of the assaults we see, we're not seeing random people being assaulted walking down the street. Correct if I'm wrong, Daniel or Tony, you guys are here. Have we seen an assault like that in the recent past?
No, most of our assaults are by known individuals.
Between 2 people. And so, that's what we are mostly see. I can't remember the last time I saw a random assault where somebody was assaulted randomly walking down the street. Thank you for your question. Herb, you were next.
I don't know if I need to mention that.
For the thing.
Oh, I just want to clarify a point that you made that me and you have a working relationship. The reason I said that because the narrative is being pushed around town that we are informants.
which
Okay.
we're not.
Well, let me clear that up.
But let me tell you, it's dangerous for us to be in the street with that nerve to go on the van, because we
Yeah.
could be shot. I know everyone do murdered already, you know, about something unrelated to this. My question was, when I see y'all put up the news about a shooting, and at the very end of it, you always say the public is safe. I don't know how in the hell anyone would think, if you don't know who the shooter is, where he is, who he's shooting at, how could you make a statement like that and saying that the community, and they're shooting all over town. They ain't like an isolated area. They shooting everywhere. We just happen to be in Prospect where there ain't no shots been fired in the last 7 months. That's why we've been working late. We just can't get to every area because I can't get enough people because I don't have enough funding. But I think that's a dangerous statement to make, because these guys are doing drive-by shooting. Don't give a damn if it's day or night. And really don't care nothing about going to jail.
So let me
Or
answer.
murder. Really. They don't care nothing about dying. You got to understand this mindset.
I know.
Okay.
But even more than that, saying that it's an isolated incident, when none of them are isolated incidents, they're all related.
So let me try to answer both of your questions. First, I will clarify, and I'll clarify this. First of all, nobody in that group, in your group, is an informant.
I know.
Not, and nor do I. Okay. So that. All right. Yeah, well, Herb, if I tried to answer every rumor out there, I'd never get anything done.
But I have damn, I got people's lives I got to
I understand that. Yes, yes. So that ain't coming from my shop. I'm gonna tell you that now. Okay. So the other question is, so we don't, and I got to go back and look, but we've stopped for the most part putting that there is. Am I right, Kyle? Our PIO.
Yeah.
That there is no danger to the public. Now, what I will say,
I think that was the verbiage.
very early on in most of these, we know who did it, and we know what it's about. But here's the thing: we have to be able to put a case together. And so when we have enough information where
First you got to test the person,
well,
right?
well, we got to have enough.
Get 'em
We
off
have
the street.
we have to have enough. We have to have enough to do that. I can't just chase anybody down and grab them because I think, right? And so a lot of times we know what happened and why it happened, just like you all do. Okay? It's like I said, it's a very small group in this city. It's a lot of the same names. Okay? We all can name them. So what I'm saying is that when we know that, and we know that it was either specifically targeted at a specific person or retaliation from a specific person, and we know that it's not a community at large, that somebody's just driving around the city shooting randomly at people, that's what we're talking about, to try to quell the public and say, listen, we know a little bit more about this, and so we don't believe this is a community-wide issue, okay? It's isolated between two specific people or groups. So that's what, but we've stopped for the most part, Kyle, am I correct?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, putting that on those anymore.
changed our
So,
verbiage.
For about a year now.
Yeah.
Something else you mentioned the Chinese and people bringing all the fentanyl in. They shooting guns too. I don't know if people know it. But they gangs too.
I know.
It's a lot more people with guns shooting in this town than people say, and all of them not being reported. Not that you know, because if anybody call you, you would know it.
Right.
But this is a lot more dangerous situation for this little bit of town that should be. I was just telling Joe, I never thought, and I was in crime myself, I never thought it would turn out like this.
Yeah.
But we got to do more work than what we're doing.
Of course, of course. Thank you, Herb. I appreciate it. What
I had
else?
a question right over here I saw a while back. So let me, I don't know. And then I know you had a question as well.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
I actually have two questions.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to know that crime is down.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing. My question is, out of the crimes that are being committed, how many of those crimes are being committed by women?
Oh, that's a good
one
question.
And then the next question is, I also heard you say that out of the officers, you have 8 African American.
18.
18.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to you is, how many of those are women,
Mm-hmm.
African American women? So two-part question.
Okay, so the first question, I don't have that answer, but I can get it to you about how many crimes of those crimes are being committed by women. I don't have that answer. We have 1 African American female officer. Yeah, so we need to do a better place than that. All right?
You had a question? Yeah, we need that mic right there.
Okay, so
My question is, what is the communications strategy? Last time you guys had a town hall, I asked a question of UVA has an alert system.
Yep.
Are you guys able to do that? If not, what would the budgetary constraints be around that? I think we overestimate how many people are actually on social media due to the fact that we're in a social media age and most young people are, but varying generations are not. So how are we making sure that just because I'm not on Facebook at 3 a.m., I don't now know that there's a shooting in my neighborhood or in the neighborhood adjacent to mine. So I just want to know, what's the status of that? Was it, considered?
Zai, so absolutely, after you asked that question, we started working on it. That exists now. Yep, so you can sign up. There's Bob, you're the one that does it, right?
It's Code Red, yeah, so ECC, there's, you can contact them, but really everyone is in that system unless you opt out. And if you choose
So
to
you're on it.
opt out on your cell plan, then you will not be contacted. But yeah,
So it's just like
everyone-
same as UVA?
Yep, just like UVA.
Yeah. But be
And
careful
that's
what you
both
ask
the-
for.
Yeah, that's both in the city and
It's
the
loud.
county.
Phone to be going off a lot. Okay, thank you, Zai, I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
What else?
Ah,
Hey, Rosia, I didn't see you over here. How you doing?
I can hold it for you.
Hello, my name is Rosia Parker.
I know your name.
And I'm a resident of Charlottesville Public Housing. So, and I'm also a victim of gun violence. Cars shot up, still, and still trying to figure out how to get it fixed because there is no funding for the violence that are done to other people's property. But I already know pretty much what's going on in the street, being boots on the ground. But my thing is, being a public housing resident, and there is really no safety meetings, there's really no safety plan for us being residents. So we're still in fear over there. So it's like at any given time, there could be gunshots or anything because regardless if we know if it's a small group or not, because that is a historic place and everybody's gonna come there no matter where they come from. So being the resident and housing is not being held accountable for what's going on with the leasing, the trouble houses and the other situations. And I know they expect y'all to do the job. So what is in place with public housing and the police department?
So I'm going to try to break down your question a little bit, Rosie, okay? Because we've talked about this a little bit as well. So we have been working really well with CRHA recently. One of the things that, just like it's a small group of individuals, when you talk about what's going on up on West Haven, how many? It was like 150 units up there, something like that. We're probably talking about 5 that are problems. Am I right? Small group up there that are causing, of residences that are causing. Most people who live up there are not causing the problems.
It comes from most people that don't live there.
Yep.
But when you have,
Or they're visiting people.
or they're visiting, or, but the thing is, when you see housing allowing this to happen,
Yeah.
and they're putting the residents in danger as well, so that puts us on both sides of the fence. And,
Yeah.
that's a lot of trauma
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
continuously deal with, so I'm still, just trying to understand how could, the public housing residents and the police work together, not just the police and the agency, because as residents, we don't know what's going on with the public housing ED or their staff and the police.
Well, why don't we set something up where we sit down with FAR, right? And have a conversation and look at doing safety meetings on a regular basis. I think that'd be a great idea.
But
And I'll come by tomorrow and we can have a conversation
yeah,
about it.
even though we have FAR, but FAR don't do as well.
We can
for
create our
us
own
as
group.
well. Yeah, so that's what
you
I'm
say.
saying. Can we
Okay.
do something that's completely different?
Absolutely.
Thank
I'll
you.
come by tomorrow. Okay? Thank you, Rosia.
Any other questions?
Anything?
Any questions? Come on, y'all have some questions. You got another question? Ah,
Not a question, but an opportunity. Some of you may know that January 20th is Martin Luther King Day, and for 36 years, gun violence prevention groups have held a rally, a memorial rally there at the Bell Tower, and then met with legislators. We're organizing a bus The information is on a poster over there. We have a QR code. We'll be leaving at noon from the Presbyterian Church on Angus Road, and I hope some of you will join us. Thank you.
Anything at all?
Right here. All right. I can hold it for you.
What is you had up on your slides earlier, Chief. I want to know, what's the difference between robbery and larceny? I have no idea what this definition is.
I'll give you an example. So a larceny, if I go to a car and open the door that's left unlocked and take a gun out of that car, that's a larceny, right? A robbery is he's got this microphone here and I push him away and then take it. That's a robbery. Okay, for a robbery, there needs to be some type of force or threat of force to take something from them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's the difference.
So robbery is actually more violent.
Yes,
in a way.
absolutely. But they're both in the same category from a reporting standpoint that the FBI requires us to report. They both fall under a class Part 1 crime.
And the other thing, some of the women in the back, we could not hear their questions. So are you going to put the questions up on some kind of a...
So this is being recorded, and so you can go back and watch it. But the two big questions was, one, our alert system is up and running. It's been up and running now, so people can get text alerts when incidents occur. And then the other question was around how many of the crimes that we're seeing involve women, and then how many women officers do we have?
And how many women officers?
Black women officers, 1.
And we'll have this video on Facebook. You can go to Charlottesville Police. Oh, you don't? Okay.
You're smart. You're smart. Don't do social media. I don't either.
We could put it.
Anything else at all? I just want to thank everybody for being here. Like I was saying, when I look around this room, this is folks, everybody who's been involved in doing the good work, and so I really do appreciate it. So have a great New Year and have a great weekend. Thank you all. Appreciate it. All right.